I'm pretty sure several days. So next week we've got 1, 2, 3. Today's the second, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more days. Yeah, we've got like 3 or 4 days assigned for each of the 3 books. I'm pretty sure it's 3 days. So we're gonna start with Canto 1 today, but we're gonna end up skipping some cantos entirely just because it includes material I don't want to talk about because it is so narrowly focused on Florentine politics or something like that. And I know I keep doing this. I really wished I had not used this book. For one reason, again, the notes, the introduction's good and stuff. It's just not, and I'm familiar with this one much better. It's just not nearly as good as Dorothy Sayers. And I kind of owe you an apology, too. I have torn my office apart because 20 years ago, I taught a course when I was working on my doctorate, actually, when PhD students there, we could pretty much design the courses we wanted to teach. It wasn't like an MTSU where you're told exactly what to teach and what you're teaching on what day, essentially, which is kind of ridiculous. Anyways, I designed a course, a sophomore level literature course, on The Lord of the Rings and the Divine Comedy. And we looked at kind of parallels between the two. And I can't find that notebook anywhere. And I had probably 50 pages just of notes for teaching the Divine Comedy. And it is gone. So everything I'm doing, I'm kind of doing from refreshing my memory. And as I reread this at night with this one right open next to me. So I want to start with these, what I have up here on the board. All of this is from Dorothy Sayers' introduction. The quote here, the poem is an allegory of the way to God, to that union of our wills with the universal will in which every creature finds its true self and its true being. Because the poem is, Dante will tell us in some of his letters and such, how he wants the Divine Comedy read. Okay? One of the ways he wants it read, first and foremost, literally. He wants it read literally, but then he also does want it read allegorically. That is, to see the meaning on the surface. So, for example, when we meet people in various circles of hell, he wants us to understand that literally. For example, when we meet, I always get this guy's name mixed up. Bruno Latini or Brunetto Latin, one of those two, who was Dante's teacher. Okay? We meet him in the circle of hell that is reserved for sodomites, for homosexuals. Okay? The reason he puts him there is because he was gay. Okay? Dante wants us to understand that on that literal level as that. But then he also wants us to understand a deeper allegorical meaning. Okay? These are images that Dorothy Sayers says are the major images used throughout the story. Okay? That's why they're the greater images. There are lesser images. The centaurs, for example. Okay? Or the minotaur. Those are images. They represent something else. So here are the major images. Okay? Dante. First and foremost, and Kirkpatrick in his introduction says the same thing. Don't read Dante, the character, the way we are supposed to read the character of Geoffrey Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales. See, Geoffrey Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales is not Geoffrey Chaucer, the author. The Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales is entirely a persona, a construct, a fictional character. But Dante in the Divine Comedy is Dante. We are supposed to understand that to be the real Dante, okay? Who was a writer, but who is not creating a fictitious persona of himself. All right? So, when you talk about the greater images, you're talking about within the story that is literally, and then the allegory, what that is meant to represent. So you have Dante, the writer himself, who is in the literal sense, going through this journey, okay, within the story, literal within the story doesn't mean he actually, on Good Friday Eve in the year 1300, found himself in a dark wood and he went down to hell and such. Okay? But within the story. But the allegory for Dante, the allegorical reading or understanding of Dante, is he stands for every Christian sinner. Notice, not every sinner. Every Christian sinner. Why? Because Dante, 1, is Christian, and 2, because he does receive the beatific vision, he does go all the way up to heaven, okay? He is Christian. Notice, Virgil doesn't. Virgil stops at the top of purgatory, okay? So, that's the first image. The second image, Virgil. Within the story itself, Virgil is simply Virgil. He is the shade or ghost of the Roman poet of the Aeneid, okay? And what that really means is he is somebody who celebrates the Roman Empire. I mean, that's what the Aeneid does. The Aeneid does, essentially for Rome, what Homer does with the Iliad and the Odyssey for the ancient Greeks. It kind of gives them a heritage, okay? The Aeneid is written for essentially, it's written for multiple purposes. One of the main purposes, however, is to celebrate imperial Rome, not republican Rome. Okay? Rome of the Caesars. Okay? The allegorical reading of that, or of Virgil, is he represents the apex of human wisdom without any kind of supernatural information, knowledge, aid, etc. In other words, Virgil, according to Dante, is the highest you can go with human wisdom, which is why we're going to see Virgil repeatedly make reference, and Dante will as well, to Dante's master being not only Virgil, but who Virgil kind of acknowledges as a master, who is the greatest philosopher of the ancients. It's Aristotle. It's not Socrates, it's not Plato, it's Aristotle. Okay? Why? Because Aristotle, for one reason, wrote much, much more than the other two. Socrates didn't write anything. Plato wrote what Socrates said, and then probably added a bunch of his stuff under Socrates' name, because he knew people would accept it. Okay? But Aristotle, he thought of everything as kind of his workhouse. Everything is something that can be investigated. So he investigates science, meaning plant life, animal life, okay? He investigates the stars. He investigates physics. He investigates ethics, human morality, everything he looks at, okay? So Virgil kind of taken it, because he's read his Aristotle, he's taken it into himself, but then he kind of goes one step farther, so to speak, in that it builds upon. Okay? Virgil's the highest human wisdom can get you. Think of it this way: if you equate wisdom with knowledge, Virgil's the Stephen Hawking, or the Einstein, or the Newton, so to speak. Right? Third image, Beatrice. Okay? Within the story, what is she? She is simply the girl that Dante, when he first saw, fell in love with. Okay? The moment he saw her, he fell in love with her. Not sexually, not erotically. He fell in love with her as an image. He saw her as bearing divine grace. Okay? So, the allegory, she was for Dante a God-bearer. Saint Ignatius of Antioch, one of the earliest of Christian saints, martyred in the early 2nd century, around 100, 110 or so, okay, was called Ignatius, the God-bearer of Antioch. The God-bearer there was Theophoros, okay, God-bearer. So that's what Beatrice was for Dante. A vehicle of glory, like, or vehicle of grace, like Mary, okay, the church, saints, grace itself, ultimately even Christ. Because what is Christ, according to St. Paul in Hebrews? He is the image and exact representation of God. Okay? 4, hell. You know you're going to have that image because you got 3 books of it. I mean, 3 books. One of hell, one of purgatory, one of paradise. So those are all images. Within the story, what is hell? It's the place of the damned. It's the place or condition of the damned. That's it. Multiple levels. They're put where they go according to the sins they were most guilty of on earth. Notice it's not like, the pinky finger gets put down where something is because that portion was sinful, etc. Okay? Where you get put in hell is where you are determined to be most fallible, if you will. Okay? The allegory, the image of deepening possibilities of evil in the human soul. So what does that mean? Well, think of the opposite of that. The image of the blooming, the growing possibilities of goodness in the human soul. This idea that one can become progressively better and better and better and better and better. So what's hell? The exact opposite of that. St. Paul also writes, can't remember which book in the New Testament, it's not Paul, it's Peter. Peter talks about the image of the Christian as when the Christian goes to heaven, they will go from glory to glory. What does he mean? They will become, as he also says in his first book, partakers of the divine nature. And what he means by that is being with God in heaven, they will become more and more and more and more like God as time passes. The only catch there is in heaven, there is no time. So you never fully become God, but you become more and more and more like God. The image I used the other day of an onion. You peel an onion, what is there? There's another layer underneath. You peel it, another layer, and it's like it never stops. This is an onion that gets bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Right? So purgatory. Place or condition of the redeemed souls after death. In kind of modern American, waspish America, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, we don't talk about purgatory. Protestants don't talk about purgatory. Why? Because for them, that's a heretical thought. But in Dante's day, purgatory is where Christians, the saved, went after death. They didn't get, it wasn't like playing Divine Monopoly, and you die and you go directly to go, where you go straight from death to heaven. Right? There's an intermediate step. What's the intermediate step for? Let's jump for a second to paradise. What is heaven? It's the place of those who are, let's jump to this one, the state of the souls that are in a state of grace. That is, they are beatified. Or to use Protestant language, they have been sanctified, made holy. Okay? And the only way you go directly from here to heaven is essentially to be a saint. A real saint. Not like all Christians are quote-unquote saints. That is a Thomas Aquinas. Mary. When Mary died, according to Catholic doctrine, she died and what happened? Her body was assumed into heaven. That's why it's called the Assumption. She went straight to heaven. She didn't have to go through purgatory. So purgatory you go to for what purpose? To purge off the darkness in you. New Testament describes God as what? A consuming fire. What's consumed? The soul? No. A purifying fire. What's purified? All the rotten filth and that kind of stuff. Right? That gets purified out. So purgatory, in the allegory, that's the image of repentance. Notice, though, in order to get to purgatory, what? This has got to be practiced here. You can't, say, well, I'm going to wait until I die and then I'm going to repent. Right? Though we are going to meet a couple people, if I'm remembering correctly, I think we're going to meet a couple people who, when they die, are not Christians. They are, quote unquote, noble pagans who are, am I confusing this with a life of something from one of the lives of the saints? I might be. I'll stop there. Okay, so paradise. Place or condition of the beatified in heaven. And notice, even when we get to the Paradiso, heaven's not just one great big happy family in Dante's conception. Heaven's not, just a campfire and everybody's sitting around roasting marshmallows and singing hallelujah and hosanna to the highest. It is what? Multiple levels. Why? Because there's sanctified and then there's sanctified. I mean, there's saved and there's really saved. Okay? Pick your no, don't pick your televangelist. Pick your local pastor, and then, somebody that most people would say, okay, that person, if there is a heaven, that person's definitely gone. Billy Graham. Most people would say he's got the in ticket. He's definitely there, even though he's still kicking down here. Okay? But then there will be others who will be, a little bit lower than Billy Graham because, they might have screwed up once or twice or, etc. Okay? So the image for the allegory of the image of the soul in paradise is a soul in a state of grace. But grace, again, like this, can be deeper and deeper and deeper, a fuller and fuller and fuller experience of grace. It's like, think of that as marriage. You can be married and you can be married, right? You can be married like you got married last weekend. Or you can be married like I've been married 32 years. There's a big difference between those two. The experience, okay, of growing ever deeper, deeper, deeper into that experience, okay? And then the last image, the empire and the city. We hear a lot about the empire within the poem. Who's the empire? Who represents the empire? The emperor, who is referred to a lot. Okay? The city? Well, on the very small local level, particular for Dante, Florence. We do have other cities mentioned. Okay? So within the level of the story, the meaning of the image of the meaning of the image in the story, what is this? This is us living how? In relationship, in community. Because every city has got to have what? People that get along. If they don't get along, you have what? Riots. Anarchy. What does the word anarchy mean? Against, what's the arc part? Order. That's why hierarchy means rising levels of order. Okay? So anarchy is against order. In order for there to be a city, you have to have order. It's orderly arranged. Even though you look at Murfreesboro from the top down and look at the roads and everything, it looks like it was arranged by Stevie Wonder. Any sense? So what's that image then under the allegory? How are we meant to live in community? Where everybody gets along wonderfully. So that if somebody doesn't have something, what does somebody next to them do? Gives it to them. It's this idea of communal relationship, not communist relationship. What's the difference between communal and communist? Communist says, I'm going to take everything all of you have, and then I'm going to redistribute it. Communal says, I've got 2 shirts. She has, or I've got 2 coats. She has no coat. Here, I'll give you one. That's the difference. It's sharing. It's an equal sharing of what one has. Right? So, the Empire City in the allegory means what? As my priest likes to say repeatedly, I would say frankly too often, we are saved together, but damned individually. Saved together how? What does Christ say is the chief of the commandments? 2. Love God, which comes first, and, louder, love your neighbor as yourself. Okay? And when he talks about judgment, Matthew 25, he doesn't talk about being able to spout off scripture verses. He doesn't talk about being able to know dogma. He doesn't talk about doctrine. He doesn't talk about theory. What's he talk about? Greek word, praxis. Practice. Putting all that quote-unquote knowledge, what? Into practice. Inasmuch as you have done it to the least of these, meaning the person in front of you, the person standing at the side of the road saying, hungry, etc., you did it to me. That's the ticket to get in. Okay? So, these are the major images. All throughout all 3 books. Because even in purgatory and paradise, we are going to hear reference to hell. And in hell, we have references to paradise. How do we know? Why does Virgil show up? Because Mary sees Dante. And she kind of rings her little bell and goes, oh, Lucia, come here, please. And Lucia comes, and she says, send Beatrice. And Beatrice goes where? To hell. She goes to limbo and tells Virgil, Dante's stuck. I need you to go get him. So, let's pick up where Dante is stuck. Canto 1. And Sayers, and I don't have it marked, and I don't want to spend time on it. Sayers goes into much more detail about how we know this is Easter weekend that this occurs, the whole action. It actually, and I need to correct something, it doesn't occur Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It occurs Friday, Saturday, through the Thursday of the following week. Dante doesn't reach the apex of heaven and then kind of wake up back here on earth until the Thursday after Easter. Okay? So, he talks, as we talked about the other day, what his theme is. The good that he found. Where? Midway through life's journey, stuck in a dark wood. Okay? And he runs into the 3 animals mentioned on lines 32, 40, can't read the numbers, they're too small, 45 and 49, okay? Leopard, lion, and wolf, all right? He doesn't tell us what they are. He just says they are a leopard, a lion, and a wolf. Now, I'm not going to go into it because it's in your notes in the back. If you're not reading the notes while you read the cantos, you need to. Okay? So, kind of, put a marker for each canto that you're reading. Put a marker back there. And what I suggest doing, read the notes first. Then read the canto. That way your mind is prepped so that when you come across the thing, you're like, okay, now I remember what that is. Okay? So he says, he tries to get around the leopard, the lion, and the wolf, and he can't. And he says, he tells us, line 53, I lost all hope of reaching those heights. What heights? Is it that he's just in a wood? Where's the wood? It's in a valley. Okay? And he wants to leave the valley not by walking through the length of the valley. He wants to leave the valley by climbing over the mountainside. Okay? And there's probably here an echo of Psalm 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Notice, it's the valley of the shadow. The shadow of death is caused by the mountain. He wants to get up and over that, but he can't. His way is blocked. 55. We also willingly record our gains until the hour that leads us into loss. Then every single thought, is tears and sadness. He says, I wanted to get across. And we tend to emphasize in our lives what? The good things. We record our gains. It's almost like he's talking about a diary. This good thing happened to me today. Until you get a hard spot. And then what? Then every thought is tears and sadness. Why? Because you can't get out of the rut. You're stuck. So now with me. He's stuck in this rut, in this wood. The brute, that brute which knows no peace, came ever nearer me and step by step drove me back down to where the sun is mute. Well, that's an odd image because the sun doesn't make sound. So what does he mean the sun is mute? No light. No light. And what does Dante do? He cries out, line 65, Miserere. Okay? Psalm 51, okay, which is David's psalm of contrition. And I meant to note this and have it pulled up on my... Yes, I'll use the King James. Have mercy on me, O God, have mercy on me. That's the miserere. Okay? According to the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. That's what Dante's saying there. Why? He's not just saying, help me, God. He's saying, my transgressions are what got me here. Okay? If you're familiar with Beowulf, how many of you have taken 3010 already? A few of you have. If you're familiar with Beowulf, when the dragon attacks, Beowulf immediately thinks he's done something wrong. When Grendel attacks, Hrothgar doesn't. Hrothgar doesn't go, what did I do? How did I go against the ancient right or the ancient law? Beowulf does. And the poet tells us, as was not his custom. Because Beowulf, well, first of all, he doesn't usually have bad things happen to him because he kills them before they can. Okay? So Dante cries out, have mercy on me, O God, have mercy on me. According to the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. I know you don't understand, Siri. Just shut up. Leave it. Turn off. Why are you not? It's like it's alive. So, a answer comes back. No, man, because Dante after cries out miserere, save me whatever shadow or truly man you be. No man, that is shadow. I was in times long gone. I once was a man. In other words, I'm not a disembodied spirit. I'm not a demon. Okay? Of Lombard stock, my parents both by patria, that is by homeland, were Mantuan. They were from the town of Mantua. And we're going to hear later on where Mantua gets its name from. Okay? A prophetess named Mantos, or Manto. So he says, I was born sub Julio. What does that mean? Caesar. Nope, not under Caesar. I mean, which Caesar? Julius Caesar. Okay? Because the period that Virgil writes about is Augustan Rome, not Julian Rome. Augustan. See, Julius Caesar is the first of the Caesars. It's, this whole Caesar idea is kind of new, kind of sketchy, but by the time Augustus is around, you have the Pax Romana, the peace of Rome, which is what Virgil is writing about in that fourth eclogue when he has the line about, and a virgin will conceive, like he's been channeling Isaiah. Okay? I lived at Rome in good Augustus' day in times when all the gods were lying cheats. What does he mean when all the gods were lying cheats? Well, what did everybody, in Rome at least, believe in Augustus' day? The Roman pantheon. He says they were lying cheats. So if those gods were real, where would they be in hell? Yeah, but where in hell? Would they be at the top level? Would they be with the noble pagans and the unbaptized? No, they are traitors. They are deceivers. Okay? So they're going to be farther down in hell. Traitors to whom? God, ultimately. Okay? So he says, I was a poet. I sang in praise of all the virtues of Anchises' son. And that immediately tells Dante who he is. Because he knows Anchises' son is Aeneas. So, he says, but you turn back. Why? Why seek such grief and harm? Why climb no higher up that lovely hill? Can Virgil not see the three beasts? Or is he kind of challenging Dante, like, come on, Dante, you can do it. Just try a little harder. On your own impulse, as it were. Why climb no higher up that lovely hill? The cause and origin of joy shines there. Meaning, the sun. If you get to the top of the hill, you'll see the sun. So could it be you, Virgil? You are the light and glory of all poets. May this well serve me, my unending care, the love so great that's made me search your writings through. You are my teacher. This is kind of news to Virgil, since he's never seen Dante before. You, my lord-in-law, from you alone I took the fine-tuned style that has already brought me so much honor. Okay? And he's talking about his other writings that he's modeled after Virgil's style. All right? Not Divine Comedy, because the Divine Comedy does not match the epic style that Virgil uses in the Aeneid. So skipping a few lines, Virgil says, well, there's another road, and if you intend to quit this wilderness, that's the one you're bound to take. What does he mean, bound? No. I mean, kind of. Necessity makes you. Destiny makes you. In other words, Dante, for you, there's no other way out of this wood. He has one exit alone. That beast, you cry out at the very sight, lets no one through who passes on her way. She blocks their progress, and there they all die. She couples a mate to many a creature, and will so with more, till at last there comes the hunting hound that deals her death and pain. He will not feed on dross or cash or gelt, but thrive in wisdom, virtue, and pure love. That is, this other creature, this hunting hound, won't take what? Dross, leftovers or impurities, or cash, you can't buy them off, nor will he take gelt, gold. He shall be born between the felt and felt. And there's a footnote, or an endnote, that tells you that this is referring to somebody born between Feltro and Montefeltro. But we don't really know what it's talking about, okay? Therefore, 112, considering what's best for you, I judge that you should follow, I should guide, and hence through an eternal space lead on. What's the eternal space? Not hell. Hell has a specific ending point. And I did my drawing the other day wrong, because I did this, and I said, here's Jerusalem, Mount Purgatory is over here, and I drew the thing going all the way. It does only go like this, because this is the hemisphere of earth, this is the hemisphere of water, and it ends here, and then they take a kind of a winding path down through there, okay? But hell has an ending point. Purgatory has an ending point. Heaven? No. Because when you go through the various celestial spheres and you reach the Empyrean, the place where God dwells, what is one of the definitions of God? Infinite. Or another way of putting it, omnipresent. If you think of the Empyrean as out here, and God is here, where else is God? He's also here in hell. David says in the Psalms, if I go down to Sheol, you're there. Wherever I am. How do we know God is also in hell? Because hell is. Okay? Because hell exists, God is also there. Why? Because St. Paul says that God does what? He upholds everything. Upholds. Everything that is simply because God wills it to be and to continue being. If God at some point said, I'm tired of upholding, everything would disappear. Okay? So, when he says, I'm going to hence lead you through an eternal space, what should that mean for Dante? Hope. That should be an indicator of hope. He's not going to lead him down in hell and leave him there. Okay? So he goes on. There you shall hear shrill cries of desperation, and see those spirits, mourning ancient pain, who all cry out for death to come once more. That's Inferno. And then you'll see those souls who live in fire, content to hope. Wait a second, isn't that kind of confused? I thought hell was the place of fire. Whenever that time comes, they too will be among the blessed choirs. See, purgatory is a place of fire, where you're being burned off. To which, if you shall ever wish to rise, what's the to which? The place among the blessed choirs. To which, if you shall ever wish to rise, a soul will come far worthier than me. That is, if you hope to make it through the purging fires and get to this other place, another soul is going to lead you through there. Why? Because he says, I must at parting leave you in, notice, he already knows who it's going to be, her care. Reigning on high, there is an emperor who, since I was a rebel to his law, will not allow his... Okay, this is the Empyrean. This is where God dwells. His what? His city. What did St. Augustine write? The city of God. In which he does what? He juxtaposes the earthly city, the city of man, with the city of God. And he tells us what about the earthly city? But every earthly city will eventually what? Crumble. It will die. Read the Old English poem, The Wanderer. Okay? Because that's what The Wanderer is all about. Everything in earth. J.R.R. Tolkien said that this was the theme of all Anglo-Saxon literature. The death of man and all his works. That's it. Everything in Anglo-Saxon literature, Tolkien says, is about the death of man and all his works. Does that mean, so, pull out a gun and kill yourself? No, because it's saying this is impermanent. What the Wanderer says at the end of the poem is, you want permanence? You want real permanence? Look to heaven. That's where it is. That's what Dante's saying. Or, Virgil is saying here. So, Reigning on high, there is an emperor who, since I was a rebel to his law, would not allow his city as my goal. He rules there, sovereign over every part. The every part is literally every part of the city, but it's every part of what? Everything, every place. There stands his capital, his lofty throne, happy the one he chooses for his own. Poet, I answered, by that God whose name you never knew, I beg you, I entreat, so may I flee this ill and worse, that you now lead me on to where you've spoken of, to find the gate where now St. Peter stands, and all those souls that you say are so sad. All right? Lead me on. So, what does Dante do? He does what every epic poet must do, even though he's not, strictly speaking, writing an epic. What does every epic poem essentially, ultimately celebrate? Holds for the Iliad, holds for the Odyssey, holds for the Aeneid. This is where I think Paradise Lost is not an epic. It is in one sense, and I'll talk about that in a moment. It celebrates the founding of a group or of a people or of a nation. The Iliad and the Odyssey are both about what? Greek culture, Greek people. Okay? The Aeneid is about what? The founding of Rome. Dante isn't about the founding of Florence, or the Divine Comedy is not about the founding of Florence. In that sense, Beowulf is not an epic. It's not about the founding of the Geats or the Danes or the Anglo-Saxons. Doesn't even mention the Anglo-Saxons. Okay? You could say, I guess, that Milton's Paradise Lost is an epic of sorts in that it's an epic of the founding of what? Heaven. Because he says he's going to do what? Justify the ways of God to man. In other words, it's about getting people into heaven. And in that sense, that's what the Divine Comedy is about. Okay? Usually, epic nowadays merely stands for what? Long. Really long. You know, Game of Thrones. Really long. People I know who read the novels, you know, even those who like it are saying, should have ended a long time ago, you know. So, he appeals to the muses. He invokes the muses in Canto True. All right? And he says, after he invokes some of them, line 22, he refers to that city and the sphere it ruled was founded as the sacred seat for all inheritors of great St. Peter. Okay. So what is the city, first of all, where St. Peter ruled? Rome. What's the sphere that Rome was the guiding intelligence of? That's what he means by it's the sphere Rome ruled. Two things. Okay. One, the Roman Empire. Okay. Kind of think of this language. That's the literal level. What else? The Roman Catholic Church. Rome's the seat of the Catholic Church, right? Well, we're going to meet later on in here. What happens to the Catholic Church temporarily during the 13th century? Yeah, that's earlier. We're going to leave the Great Schism aside for a moment. I'm talking about specifically within the Catholic Church, because the Great Schism is between the Catholics and the Orthodox. There's another schism within the Catholic Church. You have what's called, it gets referred to, interestingly enough, as the Babylonian Captivity. Okay? Even though it's not Babylon. The Babylonian Captivity is when the Jews were captured by Nebuchadnezzar, taken off to Babylon. This captivity, however, is this one, the Avignon, when Clement or Celestine, always get mixed up. It's in a footnote. One of the popes moves the papacy from Rome to Avignon, France. At the same time, the emperor installs another pope in Rome. 2 popes. Not like today, where we have Pope Francis and the Pope Emeritus, Benedict. Nobody had ever done that, by the way. Nobody ever said, I'd kind of like to not be Pope anymore, but you can still call me Pope Emeritus, Kind of like, I still get some perks with the job. He doesn't get to fly a Papal One or whatever the name of the Pope's airplane is. Okay? It's kind of implying that. So, he says, skipping a few lines, line 28, and then St. Paul, the chosen vessel, came. So, St. Peter, then St. Paul, the chosen vessel, came to do what? To carry back a strengthening of that faith from which salvation always must begin. But why me? That is, why am I kind of given this task? Who says I can? Peter and Paul are kind of the elder statesmen of the church. Okay? I'm not your own Aeneas. That is, who's the your? Churches. He's saying, I'm not the founder here. Christ obviously is. I am not St. Paul. That is, and I can't be the... What does Paul write in the New Testament? Nearly all of it. Okay? He doesn't write the Gospels. He doesn't write Acts. He doesn't write the letters of James and Peter and Timothy. Okay? You get all these other. Actually, he does write Timothy, but not James and Peter, and Philemon, and Titus, and Jude. So there's a few that he doesn't write, but he writes the vast majority. He says, I'm not St. Paul. No one, not me, could think I'm fit for this. Kind of channeling who? I say channeling there kind of facetiously. Telemachus? Okay, possible. Who scripturally? Who told God? No, you got the wrong guy. Moses. God said, Moses, I'm going to send you back to Egypt. This is after Moses kills the Egyptian, runs off into the woods, lives off in the wilderness for 40 years. Okay, sees God on Sinai. God says, I'm going to send you back. Okay, what's Moses' problem? Why does he say you can't send me back? Because he stutters. God says, don't worry about it. You got a brother. I'll let your brother speak. You just go, carry your rod. I'll do all kinds of wonderful stuff with it. Dante, not me. Okay? And then surrendering, I say I'll come. So what happens between no one could think I'm fit for this and surrendering, I'll say I come? It's kind of like he gets a spiritual thump upside the head. God's like, if I choose you, you can do it. Okay? I'll come. This may be lunacy. You are wise. You know better. So, Virgil says, 43, supposing I have heard your words aright, notice the shadow of that noble mind. Your heart is struck with ignominious dread. Very often, this is the stumbling block that turns a noble enterprise off course, as beasts will balk at shadows falsely seen. In other words, what is turning Dante away? Fear. Fear. But what kind of fear? Notice the simile. As beasts will balk at shadows falsely seen. Beasts will turn aside because they think they see something, even though the falsely seen is telling us they're not really there. What does Dante have to fear? Virgil is telling him. Nothing. I mean, you should free yourself from fear, and therefore I will say why first I came. So, Virgil's going to kind of give him his pep talk. It's the big game. The game of life. And so, Virgil says, here's why I came. Line 52. With those I whose... Sorry, I can't make sense of this. How to read it. With those I was whose lives are held in poise. And then I heard a lady call, so blessed, so beautiful. I begged her tell me all she wished. Who are those whose lives are held in... What's poise mean? To show poise. To have poise means what? You're balanced, right? To lack poise means you're klutz. You're stumbling. To those whose lives or souls are held in poise means their souls are held in balance. Notice, they're not in hell. Excuse me. They are in hell, but they're not in the bad parts of hell. They're in the unsuffering parts of hell. But unsuffering doesn't mean happy either. He says, I heard a lady call. Who is this? This is Beatrice. Her eyes were shining brighter than the stars. Why? Because she has God shining through her. And God shines brighter than the stars. Gently, softly, she begins in her own tongue and says, a man most dear to me, line 61, though not to fate, is so entrammeled on the lonely hill that now he turns all terror from the way. He turns from the way. That is, the path he should go on. Why? Because of terror. Notice, why is he there? One word. Okay? Which is going to be called elsewhere fortune. We've already talked about fortune and her little spinning wheel. My fear must be he's so bewildered there that hearing all I've heard of him in heaven, I rise too late to bring him any aid. See, Beatrice died long before Dante. So Dante is putting in Beatrice's mouth, what about the souls of the blessed in heaven? They hear/know what? What's going on down here? And she's heard about Dante. Why? Because Dante's already written about her. Dante's already described her as a God-bearer. Okay? And she says, I hope I'm not too late. For me you'll go, since I am Beatrice, and I have come from where I long to be. Love is my mover, source of all I say. Love is my mover. Love. That's God. Okay? God moved me. God did what? Speaks through me. So when Virgil sees Beatrice say this, Virgil gets the message. He who sits on high wants this done. Yes, sir. At your command. When I again appear before my Lord, then I shall often speak your praise to him. She is saying, and when I get back in heaven, I'm going to praise you, Virgil. Okay. Why? What good does it do to pray/praise somebody who is dead and in hell to God in heaven? Carlton?
Maybe go pull him up.
Okay. There are quote-unquote examples from early church history, it's lives of the saints and such, of saints talking about praying for people who were damned. Okay? And those people who were damned being released from hell. Go to, where is it? It's either Rome or Paris. I can't remember which. Or maybe somewhere in between. Trajan's column. Trajan was a Roman emperor. Okay? Damned. I think this is in Bede. that records this. And somebody prayed, somebody died, Gregory the Great or somebody, died, prayed for Trajan, and according to the vision the saint had, Trajan was removed from hell and put into heaven. Okay? Is Beatrice / Dante suggesting there might be hope for quote-unquote noble pagans? We'll see as we get later on. So, Virgil falls silent. She falls silent, and Virgil speaks. Lady of worth and truth, through you alone the human race goes far beyond that bourne set by the moon's sphere, smallest of all the skies. To me, so welcome is your least command. I'd be too slow had I obeyed by now. You need no more declare to me your will. But tell me why you take so little care, and down to this dead middle point you leave the spacious circle where you burn to go. Where you burn. Burn here is desire. Why did you come all the way down here when your great desire is to be up there? And she says, I'll tell you why. I feel no dread at entering down here. Where's the down here? First circle of hell. Okay? What does she say? We dread an object when that object has the power to do some harm. What did Socrates say in his apology about death? It's not to be feared. Why? Because we don't know whether it does a great harm or it might be a great blessing. So he says, yeah, go ahead, kill me. She's just said the same thing. Based upon what? She's channeling, or she's arguing on the basis of Aristotelian logic. We dread an object, but only when that object has the power to do some harm. Nothing can otherwise occasion fear. I was created by the grace of God, meaning I as a living, breathing person, not I, the soul of Beatrice. But I, the whole person, the whole package, was created by the grace of God. And so, untouched by all your wretchedness, nor can the flames of this great fire assail me. She's talking about, I have become, okay? I have fulfilled what I was created to be. Okay? She's saying, I have attained what I was born to be. Does she mean just herself? No. She means every person is born for one thing: glorification with God. But in order to receive that, you have to do what? You have to follow the way. You have to live the right life. Okay? What's Virgil's problem? Poor guy. Born too early. Think how badly that sucks. Okay? And this is, I would argue, from my theological perspective, this is a problem, this is a flaw in Dante's conception. But this is the medieval Catholic conception. All right? Now, there were other earlier medieval writers, early church fathers, who essentially said, who kind of foresaw the problem that Dante's creating here, and said, no, this would not be right. This would not be love, the way they understood God and love to be. So they suggested that noble pagans could end up in heaven. Why? Because they get some secret, knowledge of God? No. But because they do what St. Paul talks about in the book of Romans, okay, where he talks about the knowledge of God written on the heart. He says, before there was a law, what? Could you be guilty of something if there was no law? No. Okay? But before there was the law, there was this. What's this? Usually assumed to be the conscience. That still small voice that says, don't do that. Notice the conscience isn't about law. It's not about legality. It's about right and wrong. The law and legality have nothing to do with right and wrong. Okay? This is about morality. What C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity calls the Tao, the way. Okay? So some of these early church fathers essentially said, if they followed this, if they followed what they knew to be right, then they were obeying the knowledge of God written on their heart. Well, what's the knowledge of God written on their heart? They're being made in the image of God. They followed the image that they were made after. And in doing so, they were following, without using the word, without using the name, Christ. Why? Because Christ, St. Paul, Hebrews, the express image and the exact representation of God. So several of these early church fathers do put Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Virgil in heaven. Okay? Dante doesn't. I don't know if it's because Dante just disagrees with this idea or because Dante is completely unaware of it. Because I'm pretty sure all the ones that I've read, of these writers who say this are Greek fathers of the church, writing in Greek. And I'm not sure that Dante knew Greek. Okay? So, she goes on. In heaven, a lady, gracious, good, and kind, grieves at the impasse that I send you to. That is, I'm not the only one who sees Dante down here suffering. This other woman, she's grieving, she's weeping over Dante. And she calls Lucia. Now, what is Lucia, the goddess, saint of? Lux, fiat lux, let there be light. That's what fiat lux means. Okay? Saint Lucy, who is the patron saint of sight. She says, your faithful one. That is, Mary speaks to Lucy. Lucy speaks to Beatrice. And she says to Beatrice, your faithful one. Faithful, notice, to you. She said to her, has now great need of you. I give him to your care. Go take care of him. Lucia is the enemy of harm. Leaving her place, she came at once to where I sat. Where does Beatrice sit? Next to Rachel. Okay? Jacob's wife. And says, you, Beatrice, are in truth God's praise. Why not make haste to him? He loves you, and loving you, he left the common herd. Notice, loving you, he left the common herd. Why? Because he loves the good, the truth, the beautiful. The common herd, the mass of humanity, as Henry David Thoreau writes in Walden, do what? Live lives of quiet desperation. Why? Because they don't open their eyes. They don't really live. Okay? But he follows you. Can you not hear the pity of his tears? Do you not see the death that beats him down, swirling in torrents that no sea could boast? Down from that throne of happiness to trust in your great words, their dignity and truth, these honor you and those who hear you speak. She says, I moved. So now, as she had willed, I made my way. That is, she came down, she spoke to me. I'm here. Why? To raise you from the face of that brute beast that stole your pathway up that lovely hill. Meaning, stole your pathway. Sounds like, there was a road and the beast said, no, and takes the road away. Stole it how? Blocking him. What is it then? What's wrong? Why still delay? Why fondle in your heart such feebleness? Fondle in your heart. What are you doing when you're fondling something? You're enjoying it. You're playing with it. Virgil is saying, come on, suck it up. Let's go. Okay? There's no need to cherish this weakness. Why wait? Be forthright, brave, and resolute. 3 ladies of the court of paradise, in utmost happiness, watch over you. Okay, so 3 ladies, including Mary. What is her relationship to him who sits on high? Mom. Mother of Christ. Christ is the second person of the Trinity. Fully God, fully man, mother of God. Mom has her eye out on you. What can Dante infer from that? Well, okay, then I'll be fine. My own words promise you the utmost good. What does he mean, utmost good? What did Socrates say, allegory of the cave? What is the light up here outside the cave? It's the good. The summum bonum, the highest good. My words promise you this. And what is this? Ultimately, God. Don't worry, you're going to make it. You're going to have to work at it. Where does he have to work at it? He's got to go through hell first. So is hell, because Dorothy Sayers doesn't say this, is hell also, not literally, not in the story, but here, to some extent, also a portrayal of the image of life here?
That's my question. So is this just written about the human condition of suffering? I mean,
To some extent. Or the human condition.
just in general.
It's about the way. Okay? You have in Latin Christian theology, and you have this in the Greeks too, but they don't use the Latin form, so I'm going to use the Latin form. You have the via negativa, and they don't use this, but I'm going to use it anyways. The via positiva, the via negativa, the negative way. Okay? And then you have the positive way. Well, what does that mean? This is what's called apophatic. What does that mean? It's describing things in terms of what they're not. God is described variously throughout the Old and New Testaments. Okay? He's often described by what he's not. Okay? So the via negativa, the apophatic way, is the way of negation. Right? It's achieving perfection by staying away from certain things. The via positiva is the way of affirmation. God is truth. God is light. God is love. But what else is God? Incomprehensible, ineffable, unknowable. See, that's the negative way. Because God is outside our mental capabilities. Okay? When Lewis writes in one of his things, I think it might be, it's Mere Christianity again. He says, when we think we quote unquote know God, what have we done? Two things. We've put God in a box. Okay? And what else have we done? We've created an image, which he then rephrases and says, an idol of God. What must happen with every idol? It's got to be shattered. Even if that idol, notice, is something kind of meant to be good, because then what happens? We look to the idol rather than the difference between an idol and an icon. I'll bring an icon in next time, or I'll put one on the thing. What's an icon? It's an image of somebody, like an icon of Mary. You know, famous Orthodox icon of Mary is of Mary holding a baby, a child, Christ. Okay, a little halo over his head, a little halo over her head and stuff. Okay, what's it meant to do? Are people supposed to go up and kiss that wood and paint simply because it's wood and paint? No, because what does the icon do? It points to the reality of the image behind it. Every one of you probably has pictures in your wallet and or purse of people that you are dear to or who are dear to you. Do you keep that picture in that purse or in that wallet because you want that person near to you and you've got control? It's ridiculous. You go away on a trip, you're separated from your loved ones. Some people bring pictures, put them on the nightstand so they see them when they go to bed. Does that mean that if they kiss that picture, they're kissing the No. What's it for? It's the idea or image behind it. So icons are called windows into heaven. Idols are what? It's where that thing itself becomes all important. So you can have an icon of God. How? I thought God was spirit and couldn't be, portrayed. Well, he is spirit, but what happened? We're coming up on it. God became man. Becoming man means what? Flesh, blood, face, ears, hair. Okay? So man can be portrayed. And the earliest images of Christ date from the 4th century. Early 5th century. That's closer to him than we are to Shakespeare. Okay, so let me just think about that. So we can have these things, but not these things. What was Dante saying there? Lost my place. My own words promise you the utmost good. That is, if Dante merely rests in the words, what happens? Those become an idol. If the words point him further on, then they become an icon. What is Beatrice? She's this. She's an icon. She's pointing him onto God. Okay? And he gives us a simile. And notice, my wearied power is reviving, 130. There ran such wealth of boldness to my heart that openly, all new and free, I now began. How quick in compassion her aid to me. Hail Mary, full of grace. And then the prayer goes on, be quick to hear. Okay? He's talking about Mary there, not Beatrice necessarily. You, as you speak, have so disposed my heart and keen desire to journey on the way that I return to find my first good purpose. What's his first good purpose? What is the purpose for which every human being, according to Christian theology, is created? Yeah. Or, in another formulation, to be joined to God. That's why St. Paul says, know you not you are partakers of the divine nature. Okay? It's to become one with God. It's communion with God. All right? Dante says, oh, now I remember. Notice, when he's stopped by the lion, the leopard, and the wolf, he's frozen. It's like he can't do anything. He forgets what? He forgets his first calling. Okay? All right, we'll stop there. We got through 2 cantos. And we'll pick up on Tuesday with Canto 3. There's a little bit I want to talk about there. And we'll just keep making our way on.